Yeah.
Yes.
Do you ever, so one of the things I think about often is I'm always looking for like the contrast and looking at it. So there's some people that believe that like a very simple life, right? We'll call it a Buddhist mentality, whatever you want to call it, like a very basic life. We don't need to do all those things. Striving for things is actually the thing that brings like stress and suffering to our lives. Have you thought about that? Like, how do you think about that? And you've obviously come to a conclusion that's like, no, 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 I want to strive. I want to do it. What's the answer to that?
You know what? I'm just gonna add to that something because like if you Google me a few years ago, you would have probably not found about me. Like I was that kind of person that just wanted to hide from the world. So I was totally opposite until few years ago. I think I was very much concerned about like what would people think about me if I do all these things. So for many years, I would say people would not know about me.
Can I
People
ask
would not.
that? Not to cut you off. I'm so sorry, but I think it's
Sorry,
interesting.
it's okay.
What were you afraid they might think? Like, what was the fear that you had that if they knew about you, what would they think?
That's the thing. I don't know what I was afraid of,
Hmm.
but I think coming from a culture like the South Asian culture where you're always like everyone just talks about you no matter what you do in life, whether you do good or bad. People are always talking. People are always finding something to talk about you, and sometimes it can be toxic. It can influence your self-esteem and how you think
Hmm.
about yourself. And I think that was my biggest concern. Like I was just worried that if I say some things like in front of a camera or if I say some things on a podcast, it might fire me back. So I was
Hmm.
just worried about that. But then I was thinking, but people will always find something to talk about, so who cares?
Yeah.
So that's how I was like, you know what, I should not sacrifice all these things that I want to do in life because I'm just worried about what people think.
Hmm.
And that's how I was like, that's it. I'm just going to do whatever I'm meant to be doing. I'm going to do what I enjoy the most.
Hmm.
And that's when I went for it. And now I'm very much conscious. I'm very conscious that if you Google me, you'll find stuff about me, whereas before you wouldn't.
Hmm.
But I do like to be that point of reference where, if there is something and people remember my name, I know that, okay, she did make an impact.
Hmm.
She said something that, it
Mattered.
just stayed with them. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I get that. I get that so deeply. And I guess back to the original question before I cut you off, I'm sorry about like the kind of more Buddhist simple life. For
uh-huh.
you're living this life. How do you know it's right for you? Is it an internal feeling where you say, I know when I wake up in the morning, I feel motivated, I feel inspired, I feel good about the things I do, and that's how I know this is the right path for me.
Yeah, I think I just follow my instinct, like
Mm.
literally. I just follow like what my instinct tells me and I just go for it. Like I'm not second guessing, I'm not thinking too much about it. If I'm like, okay, this is what I want to do, I'm just gonna go and chase that and
Mm.
just make sure that I achieve it. So for instance, some of the things that I've been like trying to work on in the past year was trying to get on different podcast shows because my goal was, I got on YouTube, I have a blog, and now I just want to get into different podcast shows. And that has been my goal. And every day I was like waking up and going on Matchmaker, finding people that,
Yeah.
who would like be interested in having me. And I made sure that I had a good profile so people would find me interesting.
Mm.
So I think I'm just driven by my own motivation of just like making an impact and dominating the world. And I think that's what drives me every day to do what I do. And I make sure that I'm achieving all these goals. So one of my friends said, "You are a go-getter," and I do like to think of myself as a go-getter.
Mm. Mm. Super interesting. I wonder, circling back to the beginning of the conversation, and again, there's no value judgment in this. I think everybody's got to be themselves and be what they are. But I'm curious, like through the conversation, had we not started with what's the value, and you had not said friendship, I would have said, oh, the value is achieving, making an impact. Like that seems to be what drives you, that global domination to an extent. So bring it back to me for the friendship piece of it. Like again, kind of where we were, where we started. Is it, and I'm not saying you don't care about friendship, obviously, but is it really friendship, or is it really more this idea of that global domination, just to stick with that phrase?
No, I would still tell you it's
Yeah.
friendship because, like, if you ask me, like, if you really do ask me, like, what is the most important value, friendship is the first thing that comes to my mind. Like I don't think I would ever tell you it's global domination. I think it would probably just come later on the scale. It will probably be the second or the third most important. But I think if you talk to me about values, I think friendship, it still is very much important for me. Like very much important. These are the people that I open up myself to and just tell my deepest secrets, people that have been there for me every time I needed them. And I think if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be the person that I am today. So they did help me to shape the person that I am. And they also helped me to understand myself and to also learn myself. And probably, I think that what led me to achieving all these goals.
Yeah, I get that. Because I think about that too often. Like, again, I don't want to make it seem in this conversation at all like ambition or achieving things is bad. I want to achieve a bunch of things too. But I think I'm like you, when I kind of am sitting alone and thinking about life, and as you get the idea, I think a lot. I think I come to a similar thing that's like, but at the root of all of it, it's about those relationships. Like, yeah, I want to achieve stuff. I want this podcast to be successful. I want it to help people. I want it to do all those things. But when I think about why, and I play the thread all the way out, there's probably some point it hits where it's like, because I want to be able to enjoy it with the people that I care about and feel good about myself and them. And it does come back to that at the end of it in some way. So I get that.
Yeah. And you share your success stories with the most important people in your life. Like, you can be super ambitious, achieve all these things, but then if you don't have anyone to celebrate it with, what's the point?
Right. Exactly. That's exactly beautifully said. And I know that's kind of cliched, but cliches are cliches for a reason, right? It's because they're true. Like, what is the point, right? If you achieve exactly what you're saying, if you achieve that global domination, if you got your face everywhere and on all the podcasts and super successful, but all your friends were gone, there was nobody to share it with, would it actually be worth it? And that's, for me, I think the answer, although that's so compelling, if we're being honest, right? That global domination is so compelling. I don't think it has value if there's no friends around. And I mean, it sounds like maybe you're similar.